Good morning, and welcome to the Terry Leadership Speaker Series. My name is Bhusur Ranasinghe. I'm a junior Leonard Leadership Scholar with the Institute of Leadership Advancement, studying finance and international business. The Institute for Leadership Advancement in the Terry College of Business is an undergraduate certificate program that develops value-based, impact-driven leaders. ILA instills leadership capabilities, promotes self-development, and improves communication, teamwork, innovation, and adaptability in our ever-changing global environment. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Marty Flanagan. Mr. Flanagan is the President and CEO of Invesco, a position that he has held since 2005. Invesco is an American investment company headquartered out of Atlanta, Georgia. With its geographical footprint reaching more than 20 countries with over 8,500 employees, it manages an investment portfolio of over $1.4 trillion. Before joining Invesco, Mr. Flanagan was the President and Co-Chief Executive Officer of Franklin Resources from 2004 to 2005. Within Franklin Resources, he has held numerous senior positions, including Co-President, Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer, and Senior Vice President from 1993 to 2003. Mr. Flanagan served as a Director, Executive Vice President, and Chief Operating Officer of Templeton, Galbraith Hansberger Ltd. Before its acquisition by Franklin in 1992. Mr. Flanagan serves as a trustee of the Southern Methodist University and as a member of the executive board at the SMU Cox School of Business, his alma mater, from which he earned a Bachelor of Business Administration and a Bachelor of Arts in Accounting. We are thrilled by the unique opportunity to hear from Mr. Marty Flanagan today. Please join me in welcoming today's speaker.
Thank you, Bhusru, for that wonderful introduction. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Caroline Groff, and I'm a Leadership Fellow studying economics. I'm excited to facilitate today's discussion. You bring so much wisdom and insight through your experiences in the business industry. Thank you for joining us today. We're truly excited to have you.
Thrilled to be here. And can I say, I'm a proud SMU alum, but I'm been adopted by UGA. So my daughter went here, my son-in-law went here, my wife's involved at the university, so thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you. All right, Mr. Flanagan, to get us started, walk us through your educational background and how it has influenced your career.
We're all products of our experiences, aren't we? And let me, a little perspective. I'm from Chicago. My dad was a commodities trader, traded corn. My grandfather traded wheat. Just was always interested in markets. That was a foundational element that got me going in a career. I went to SMU, probably because I could get in, as opposed to having a lot of choices. But it's a great experience. I was a B.B.A. in accounting, and the reason why I did that was it was a difficult time, and engineers and accountants were getting jobs, so it wasn't necessarily what I was interested in, which is a lot different than probably what you all are doing, which is great. And I had a second degree in Ibero Studies, and that came because I went to school in Ecuador, Spain, and Peru. And that in particular, I would say, was the best part of my education. I began to understand different cultures, different parts of the world, you start to understand how lucky you are to be an American in many different ways. And so that international travel was foundational to my educational experience.
Awesome. In ILA, we have learned that great leaders need soft skills. What experiences helped shape you as a leader?
That's a fact. And I was just talking to Dr. Little, and I can't tell you how fortunate you all are to have this program available. I had one class in organizational behavior when I was in university, and if you want to call it, my organizational success was self-taught. So literally having this program's invaluable. So that's great. So I was fortunate to work for a man named Sir John Templeton. You can Google him at some point. He's a very famous global international investor. He's passed away now, but an amazing human being. When we were living in the Bahamas, I was a small company. I was the 14th employee. Probably the most important thing is my wife was the 10th employee, and she got me my job, so remember that. And we were just dating at the time. And Sir John said he offered me a job so my now wife would not leave Templeton. So how's that for self-esteem builder. But it was from him I learned so much from observing what he did. And the soft skill was I would watch him prepare for a meeting. He would just get incredibly prepared. And so when we would get in the meeting, I know he had a point of view and a well thought out point of view. But what I watched was that he would ask questions, listen, never put forward his thought until the end. But I could watch him start to change his views with a new set of information. So that's a very important thing. And so what I did when I started to move into, if you want to call it executive ranks of an organization, what I realized was that technique was what I call this be the last one to speak. So when you go into a meeting, I don't care how pleasant you are as a person, if you go in and say, if you're the boss, here's my idea, I'd like your ideas now. You shut it off. You shut off all possibilities of new information. And so I actively engage people. And if somebody's quiet and an introvert, I literally ask, Sally, Peter, what are your thoughts? And literally bring them out. It's a really, really important skill to develop, as you go through your career.
Mm-hmm. And a hard one too.
What you realize is you become a lot more effective, right? And so it is self-reinforcing that you will use that technique. It's an important one, and you'll be a better person.
Definitely. Well, kind of going off of that, what advice do you have for students to set them ahead in the professional world?
And again, this is a really fortunate situation where you get hired by technical skills, quite frankly, right? The reality, those that want to go beyond an individual contributor, you need to be able to thrive within an organization. And that means helping your colleagues, helping anybody around you within an organization. Without that awareness of soft skills, if you want to call it that, how can I make a difference? How can I solve this problem in the right way? How can I learn more? How can I make my company better? How can I help my clients more? If you don't have those skills, it's a train wreck. So fortunately, you're actually getting this education right now, and it never ends, right? So being reflective, being curious, being open-minded, these are all really important things for your development and your success in business.
Thank you for that. So as we're transitioning into our early careers, what opportunities led you to Invesco?
So I only made 2 career choices to actively join another company. When I left Arthur Andersen to go to Templeton, and then leaving Franklin Templeton to go to Invesco. We couldn't have been happier in California. The family was happy, it was with a good company. I was co-CEO at the time. But Invesco was a competitor of ours that we'd run into them all around the world, and it was looking for a successor and was somewhat of a challenge company at the time. And I got a call, spent a few minutes talking to Invesco, and said, nope, we're happy in California. And on reflection and talking to my wife, I said, I was 45 at the time. I said, I wonder if I could actually do this. I wonder if I could actually turn this company around and have it grow. And we decided that at 45 years old, I didn't want to be now 62 and say, I wonder if I could have done that. And I felt I had the experience, I had the energy, and here we are. And it was a wonderful decision. But being very thoughtful when you make those choices, it's critical. But I will say, when you're at a younger age, you got a long way to go. So you know when to take informed risks in your career.
Wow, that's exciting. So we're talking about taking risks. Were there opportunities that you declined and did not take the risk? And how did you navigate making those decisions?
I'm glad you asked me that question, because I think this is a complicated one for younger people these days.
Yes.
As I said, I literally only made 2 active decisions to go somewhere else. So I happened to be at good companies. I valued my experience in growing within the companies I was at. It feels to me today like people, every 12, 18, 24 months, when you're not happy, you go somewhere else. you really don't develop so much as an individual. And I think everybody's heard the saying, the grass is greener on the other side. Well, the fact is, it's not true. It's brown on both sides. And so when you're at an organization, assuming it's a good culture, you're fitting in there, try to make the company better. Your ideas are welcome. I have, in my career, tried to get into the organization to understand what's going on, talking to people. Yes, we do all the surveys and all the other things you think. But when I learn of some of the dumb things that we might do within the organization, I'm like, this is actually shocking to me. And why wouldn't, have a culture where you pop up your ideas? And so, to answer your question, it's sort of twofold. Be thoughtful, even coming out of university. I don't care how good the company is. If the culture doesn't fit you, don't do it, because it will not be a good experience. So culture matters a ton. Know what you're trying to accomplish in life. And by the way, I never strive to be the CEO, so I just look the next few years out, be fulfilled, make a difference, learn, always learn, and you'll come up with the right spot. But give the organization you're with a chance and make a difference there.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for that. So you mentioned earlier that you had one class in behavioral management and organization, but now, as a prominent leader of Invesco, when did you discover your passion for leadership?
I don't know that I ever had a passion for leadership. What I had a passion for was, I ended up in the investment management industry, which is something that was interesting to me. The other thing is I wanted a global experience, and so it was a global firm. But really, the investment management industry was a little bit of a cottage industry when I joined. It's not today. It's a $100 trillion industry globally. But it was really undermanaged. And so what intrigued me was trying to understand what would be well-trodden, management practices in already developed, mature industries and bring them to the money management industry. And so I stopped managing money when Franklin bought Templeton in 1992. And it was just always trying to have the company become a better company. And so it's getting to the same thing, but you'll know it if you enjoy it. I really have enjoyed that part of the business. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it seems that you just kind of stumble into things and just take opportunities and go through open doors. But many students like me want to be in an executive position eventually. What advice do you have for us?
A few different things. So first of all, everybody here, well done. You're at a spectacular university. You're all plenty smart. So you start from a really good spot. So, but developing these, if you want to call it technical skills or practical skills, I don't want to, this matters. It matters in your career that you are knowledgeable and you can carry that on with whatever direction you do within an organization. But again, back to Dr. Little's program, it is really important to pay attention to that. And when you're within an organization, you're going to be more or less individual contributor, but be organizationally aware, meaning put up your hands, participate in something, know what's going on around you. Don't put the burden on the organization to look out for you and meet people, find things that are interesting. You don't have to change jobs, jump on a project. So actively advance your knowledge and your experience, and good things come to those that make a difference. And have a presence at the organization that you're at.
Yes, that's great advice, just to look out for the problems that you see and take initiative to
absolutely.
See them, definitely. So congratulations on your recently announced retirement. That is so exciting. And so as you're reflecting on your career at Invesco, what do you enjoy most about your current role?
Yeah, so I am retiring after 18 years in a job at a public company that I've really, really valued. And this will not sound like what I feel best about, which would not be normal, but this gets back to why I'm so excited about the Dr. Little's program. It's the culture of the organization. It's a culture that cares about clients. It's a culture that cares about individuals. And that's just not my opinion. It comes out in our surveys that we do all the time. We're actively doing surveys. We have generally 85% participation rates, which is very, very high. And the answer is, why does it happen? It's because we respond to the survey information to make the company better. But why I've been so interested, it's a fascinating industry, but because we're a money manager, every day there's something new and different that impacts our clients or our business. Whether it be, by the way, the balloons getting blown up over the weekend, that's an issue for us. We have a huge business in China. We have a lot of investments in China. So geopolitical issues matter, the economy matters, how sectors are performing, technology disruption matters. And so it's an industry that there's no end to education. And the people in it tend to be pretty curious, which you really need to be. And everybody has a different point of view, which is also fun. And so I would needless to say, I'm biased, put on your list, check out the investment management industry. There are many, many good companies and many different experiences you could have.
Yes, that's awesome. And talking about kind of like the highs and lows of the market, there's always stuff going on. In the business school and over the last several years in particular, we talk a lot about pivoting as a leader. How do you ensure you're agile and flexible while maintaining a degree of stability within the organization?
It's a great question. So you always have to start by having a purpose as an organization. And Invesco has its purpose, and it's not made up. We probably refreshed it about, 8 years ago, and it literally took a year to do it because we engaged the organization. What are the characteristics of the organization that make Invesco who it is? One of them happens to be diversity of thought, which is really invaluable for what we do. So know what your purpose is. Don't move your purpose. Understand what your values are because they matter. And if you ever lose track of your purpose and your values, you're going to go off track. Within that, though, the reality is industries are very, very dynamic. Organizations are dynamic. Mm-hmm. If you look at Invesco today, if you took a picture of Invesco today, look at the size, breadth, depth, types of asset classes that we manage as in countries that are in, if you didn't put the two names together, side by side, they're not the same company. And that is a result of pivoting over time and being agile over time, but it was always done within this foundation of purpose and value and understanding what we're meant to be doing.
Yes. So would you say that Invesco, so it's changed, but the core is still the same with the values and the culture?
Absolutely, right? It's, we as a money manager, we are literally fiduciaries of other people's money. And our mission, our purpose is to ensure that we meet the investment objectives and service levels that are expected of our clients. But people's objectives and goals change over time, and we need to change along with that.
Right, right. Especially now in the crazy economy with who even knows what's coming next. Yes, but as Invesco has maintained that consistency in their culture, but what are some of the biggest obstacles you've had to overcome?
Let me make 2 points there. There's been a consistent culture from some foundational elements, but a culture shouldn't be stagnant either, from my perspective. We've acquired a number of companies, and when we look to acquire, of course it needs to be strategically aligned, financially has to make sense, but we literally test the culture of the firm that we're going to acquire. And if it's culturally misaligned, we won't do it. But if we buy it, there are elements of the culture that are valued by that organization, that are important to that organization, and we keep the best of ours, and we'll adjust it with a new set of talent and thought and history and purpose. And so I think it's fine to evolve the culture over time. I think it's really important to. This issue of obstacles, you'll have an obstacle every single day. And I prefer to look at every obstacle as an opportunity. Because you have no choice but to get past the obstacle. And often, obstacles becomes challenges to your career or how you think. First of all, do never change your values in a challenging situation. That's where people get in trouble. And secondly, often you get in this win-lose situation during obstacles, really unhealthy. So the way that I think about it is think of the outcome that you're trying to achieve and how do you get past the obstacle. It puts your mind in a positive framework. Instead of creating winners and losers, if you can have outcomes that serve everybody as best as possible, you'll be more effective and you'll find your way around the obstacle and turn it into, frankly, an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. That's a great piece of advice. Thank you for sharing that. Talk about recent obstacles, COVID. Yes, definitely made us all aware of how quickly the economy can turn. How has Invesco successfully navigated the highs and lows, especially that big low of COVID?
Yeah, you're going to get tired of me saying this, and Dr. Little's not paying me to say this, but culture matters again.
Yes.
We got through COVID. We are a global firm, as you picked up. You know, we saw it come from Asia Pac through Europe into the United States. It was like a slow-moving wave. But as everybody started to work from home, we were really effective because we knew each other. We had a shared set of values. And we moved forward as an organization. And we focused on our clients and client success. We started by how can we be helpful? And that's really quite invaluable because you're focused on the right thing. You know, it was a period that all businesses had to figure out a way to thrive during it. And so this comes back to this element today. I don't think we collectively, nor have all businesses figured out how do we work going forward. And I'd say to all of you from this, we hired about 1,500 people during that period of time. So for a year plus, 1,500 people knew Invesco from, you know, a Zoom call or a Teams call. And you're missing a very important, the young people are missing a very important part of their development by not being within an organization, getting to know people, getting pulled into a meeting that you might not be pulled into otherwise, getting pulled into a client meeting that you might not otherwise. These are invaluable things. You start to become a part of something that's fulfilling within a career. That also makes you more effective in your career. So, you know, again, we all have not figured it out, but I would highly encourage you to put that, you know, into your thinking because you'll be better and it's actually a more fulfilling career.
Yes, and that is really cool that y'all hired people during COVID and y'all kept going and growing and the people were really important. But talking about people, we're kind of pivoting. Great leaders never lead alone. So how have mentors played in your career?
Yeah, so again, I'm aging myself very much. You know, this, I selected my mentors, they didn't even know it actually. So there was, and with Dean Ayers, we were joking a few minutes ago, and I'll get to the mentors in a second, but when I thought of performance reviews, the performance review was I got a paycheck, right? You know, no one was saying, how do you feel? And you need to work on this. You know, you were either employed or unemployed. So luckily that's changed. I've been very fortunate. So John Templeton would be a very important mentor of mine. And again, I would encourage you to Google him. Not only was he a successful businessman, he was way ahead of his time in philosophy, philanthropic activities. Very interesting person to look at. A man named Phil Purcell, he was the CEO of Morgan Stanley Dean Witter. He was one of these people, I'd never worked for him, but he was available to me at important times when I needed, you know, some advice from somebody with wisdom and judgment and experience. And then it would really be Charlie Johnson, who founded Franklin Resources, or what's called now Franklin Templeton. And again, they're adopted mentors, right, of mine. I watched what they did, I studied what they did, and you know, they were very, you know, kind to me in my development. So having them, you know, really matters, and you don't have to have one, right? And I'll say another thing. People that are further along in your careers than you, reach out. You know, they do want to engage with you. They do want to share their experiences. You will learn from things that went well, that didn't go well. So this element of developing your own wisdom and judgment and perspective, that matters. And you can advance that by, you know, yes, it's your own personal experiences, but hearing of other people's experiences really matter too.
And those experiences are really valuable because then you can get double the experience, your own and your mentors. You mentioned earlier the switch from the company in California to moving out here. How did your mentors like change over the move, or how did you like find new mentors, or what did that relationship look like?
Yeah, the person I talked to right then was Phil Purcell. So I was working for Charlie Johnson. We're still very good friends today, but he wasn't so happy with me when I was leaving the firm. It was really an engagement with Phil Purcell and talking about, am I crazy? Am I out of my mind? And he was just very factual and passing on his thoughts and his experiences. And I'm glad I did it. But again, I'm going to put this back into, when you're going to make an important career decision, be as informed as you can be, get other people's perspectives, do it for the right reasons. And by the way, it's not always going to work, but that's just part of life. But the more you prepare, the more likely you'll be successful.
Awesome, great advice. So talking about the few men that were mentors in your life, but who is your biggest inspiration?
Other than my wife, I'm sorry to say again, is John Templeton. I mean, he is a special human being from the totality of who he is, the impact he's made, just not in business, but in philanthropy and how he thinks about life. And he opened my mind to thinking about the world in a very, very different way. And I'll be forever grateful for that.
That's awesome, amazing. So one of my mentors once told me that I wouldn't reach my potential unless I fully accepted my failures. Is there a moment in your career where you turn a failure into an opportunity for growth?
I fail all the time, but this is really important. Being self-aware, reflect on your situations honestly, get direct feedback. And a friend of mine that I work with, a colleague, says facts are friendly. You might not like the facts, but you're going to learn from the facts in these situations where you failed.
Right.
It's the most important thing that you can do really in your development. And you'll probably advance yourself more rapidly by learning from your mistakes and failures than sort of feeling wonderful about the good things you did. So don't be emotional about it. Be very analytical about it, but take it into your own development, is what I would say.
Right, that's awesome.
So that's good advice you got.
Yes, great advice from you. Okay, so kind of to pivot again, you attended the Future of Asset Management North America conference last year. One of the themes discussed revolved around culture, stating good culture ensures a good company that creates good outcomes for clients and shareholders. And we've talked about this earlier. In ILA, we spend a lot of time discussing the importance of culture. Invesco's website states, we have a culture of inclusion and excellence where we empower employees to meet the needs of our clients, employees, and shareholders. How does Invesco put this idea into action?
It's a great question, and it's really important. And again, when you join a company, test this one out because it's going to matter to you. So foundationally, just because who Invesco is, this diversity of thought and this element of inclusion are foundational. So we're in 24 countries around the world. We have clients in 150 countries. We're so global that if you take a picture of the organization, it represents the world. And I've been fortunate to live in that. So I know nothing different than that, quite frankly.
Right.
And we are better by getting input from people with different views, different experiences, different cultures. It's absolutely invaluable. And now there's a lot of research around it, but I just say, just factually, you're a better organization. You'll just thrive more. The contrast is, think of a closed environment where all the people look the same, all the people went to the same school, they all hang out with the same people, there's no new information. Just on its face, that can't sound like it's really helpful. And it's not, by the way. So that said, we look to, let me talk about this in another way. Now let's get sort of practical where you're going, sort of like diversity. So within investment management, gender diversity has been lacking, right? And half the population of the world is female, so you say, what is that all about? That just can't be true. We had about 25% of our senior managers were women around the world. And we had for years been trying to advance that, and I sort of woke up one day, I don't know how long ago, 6 years ago, saying, this just isn't working. And what I did was, I owned the issue and said, we need to change this. And we publicly put out, now it's happening all the time, but then it wasn't, that within, I think it was 3 years, we wanted to get 25%, I think it was 32 to 34. In 2 years, we changed that percentage. And you just have to own it as a leader and your leadership team, and that's just morphed into all diversity type programs within, we have very formal ones right now, so having a place where it is an informed, safe place for people to engage and work through topics. So you can't just say it's foundational, you need to do something about it too. And you're never done, and but it's something very important to me, and it's very important to our organization. And it might be the right thing to do, but by the way, it also makes a better organization.
Right. And Invesco's culture is amazing. There's so many great things about it, and especially how it's stayed consistent over the past few years. And talking more about how you make your employees feel, you discuss the importance of building a community where employees feel accepted and respected. Tell us about some of the ways that you do that at Invesco. Like, how does that?
Yeah, I don't want to repeat myself too much. So outside of the fundamental elements I talked about, we have probably 18 business resource groups is what we call them right now, representing all different types of diversity within the organization. And just spending another minute on it, you literally have to have the right leadership there. You have to have a framework of success. You have to allow people to have time during the workday to spend time on that. You actually have to fund it, because those are elements that are around it. So that's getting a little more detailed and practical. But so it's the combination of real programs connected with this sort of cultural element that is pretty pervasive within the organization.
Right. Well, that's awesome. And we're learning that in our classes too, of learning how to combine that culture and people and working together. It's no easy feat for sure, but thank you for sharing that story.
Sure.
Yes. So the ILA program exists to create values-based, impact-driven leaders. And we discuss our personal values and leadership values and how they will contribute to our legacy. What are your leadership values, and how do you think they've impacted your legacy?
It's a good question. And I think extreme elements of that have come out just in our conversation today. My leadership values are foundational in the purpose of the company, the values of the company, which really gets to, in the first instance, ensuring that we serve the clients in the way that is expected, but with internally, you have to have a set of values that are consistent with that. So the elements of being transparent, being, it sounds so basic, being truthful, do the right thing. These are things that really matter. And sadly, some organizations get off track when they come under pressure, and you just cannot do it. If you violate fundamental values, you're really not going to recover, from my personal opinion. The question is when. It might last longer than it should, but there is an end to it.
Yes. And how those values are really important, and they stay consistent throughout your career, which is something we've been talking about. But how have your leadership values evolved from a college, and have they evolved? Or as we're studying so much about what our leadership values are?
Yeah, I'd say what happens is they'll probably evolve some, on the edges, as we were talking about. The key ones will never change. But what happens, they will mature as you take on more responsibility from starting as an individual contributor. It's sort of do the right thing. But as you move on, you're now responsible take on more and more responsibility for your team, and you start to impact the organization. And so there's a little bit of a weight that comes with that responsibility because it's beyond you. You now have a responsibility to your colleagues, and then at some point to the clients, and at some point to the shareholders. And that's where you'll need to just continue to mature along with them. And by the way, it's a never-ending exercise. You'll never be perfect,
Yes.
but make sure it's front and center.
Yes, awesome. Well, and talk about being front and center as we apply our values to our careers. I read an article in the Atlanta Business Chronicle about the growth of Atlanta-based companies and startups. What do you think is responsible for that change?
Yeah, I'd say Atlanta is a really incredibly unique city, and I can say that because I'm not from there. So first of all, I've never seen a more engaged leadership community, and I'd say it's the CEOs of the public companies, the university presidents. Everybody's available to one another. They focus on the success of Atlanta, and then you combine that with the great universities that happen to be UGA, Georgia Tech. You keep going around and around. The talent pool is enormous, and yes, people go to other parts of the country, but Atlanta's not so bad, right? So there's a lot of enthusiasm for that. We started something called Engage Ventures, if you want to Google it, and it's owned by 12 of the large public companies. I'm chairman of it, and what it really is an incubator and a fund, and it connects startups with big businesses, and I could go on for a while, but it is representative of, it happens in very few places because it's not just the universities, but it's also the business leadership and the way people connect, and I'd say this ecosystem that is very unique, and that's going to continue to have advancements in the startup community.
That's exciting for us to
Yes, it is.
go out in
Yeah.
Atlanta. Yes, sir. So as we're preparing to go out into the business world and start our careers, we sometimes have too much to juggle. And this problem's not going to go away. It's probably going to get worse as we get older. And you encourage your employees to maintain an appropriate work-life balance. How do you balance your time for career, service opportunities, and your family?
Yeah, so you must do that. And by the way, I'd say it's much more accepted within the business world today, which is great. When I started, it was be the first one in, last one to go, and somehow that was valued, regardless of impact. So I model it. I do take vacation. I tell people to take vacation. I encourage people to get involved in the community. We give people time off to be involved in the community. It makes you a better person, and it's healthy for you as an individual, and a healthy colleague at work is a more effective colleague at work. And so, again, as you're looking for places to land, ensure that that's available to you, because it's really, really important. And as you get on in your career, you'll find the demands on time are never ending, and it is the scarcest resource to manage. So right now, for example, this is why you might not want my job. So I know I wake up January 1st of each year, 2/3 of my calendar is full for that year and the next year and 3 years out. That's what happens. And so then you have to figure out, I plan my year by my blocks of vacation and whatever to be with family and the like. But that you have to make that an active part of your planning for what if you want to call it personal health, personal growth, or it'll happen to you. And it's more inclined to happen to you as you move on in your career.
Yes. Well, that is great advice. Thank you for sharing that. And finally, to wrap us up, what is one thing you hope to be remembered for?
It's a good question. So obviously I've not been reflective on this one yet. I better hurry up because I'm about to retire. So, I would say honestly, I'm really proud of what Invesco is these days, but I hope it really is the foundational values of Invesco, the culture of Invesco, which allows an organization to live beyond any one individual. And that the values are such that it was focused on clients, it was focused on employees, and focused on shareholders. And so I would say those are my early reflections, and I reserve the right to modify them in the next 6 months.
Awesome. Well, let us know.
I will.
Well, thank you, Mr. Flanagan, for
Thank
your
you.
wisdom and insight and for sharing your experiences with us. We have a few minutes to answer a question.
Great.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Hi, my name is Ashley LaPrade, and I'm a junior and ILA scholar studying finance. And I think I could speak for everyone today. Thank you so much for coming out and speaking with us today. Everything you said was very insightful, and I truly learned a lot from you. And as a woman in finance, the finance industry has historically been male-dominated, and so you touched on this a little bit, but I was curious what specific initiatives has Invesco implemented to support women in finance?
Thank you. And look, let me, it's really important, and let me separate something. The finance industry is many different things: investment banking, insurance, et cetera, et cetera. Please look at the investment management industry. Yeah, we don't hire as much as investment banking and the like, but it is a very high quality of life, and it's a really interesting industry. And there's a greater ability for all to participate in it, and having greater flexibility in one's life. So I'd say that first of all. Secondly, I talked at some length about how we think about gender. We've made tremendous progress in doing it. We're not done. Today, I said we're now 40% of senior leaders are female. We started at 25 4 years ago. So good progress, not perfect progress. And as I said, the boss needs to own it, the leadership team needs to own it, and you need to broaden it through all, all segments of the population to ensure that you thrive as an organization. And again, I would make sure, if somebody tells you that they're perfect at it right now, I'd go look for another organization, because it's never ending from my perspective. But do test that it is an organization that values diversity, and you'll figure it out pretty quickly. But it's an important one to pay attention to.
That's a great point. Thank you so much. And we have time for one more. Yes.
Hey, my name is Ellie Poindexter, and I'm a fall fellow studying finance and communications. Thank you so much for your time coming out here today and sharing so much wisdom and insight with all of us. As Anna Caroline mentioned earlier, there is so much impending news of recession or inflation, and just so much uncertainty in the economic field, which is very daunting for all of us entering the workforce over the next couple years. Do you have any advice for that ambiguity and uncertainty as we prepare to step into that?
I do. A few thoughts. Let me say this. You're going to live in uncertain times, okay? So it never stops. It's just where it is on the spectrum. So take a deep breath. The good news is, repeating myself from where we started, everybody in this room is very smart and talented. You're getting a spectacular education. You're going to do fine. Now, if it feels hard to get into the workforce immediately, do not be frustrated. You might have to take the job that's not your perfect job, but thrive in that job. And what I tell my kids, the best way to get a job is to have a job. And if it's not a job, make sure it's something purposeful, because that will be respected too. Employers don't like I've done nothing for 18 months because I couldn't find the perfect job. That will not serve you well. So take that one off the table. And that's practical. Let me, again, I'll sound like the old person here. What you're dealing with is nothing, coming out. So when I graduated in 1982, and this is what Fed funds rate was 11%. Unemployment was 10%. A 30-year fixed mortgage was 13%. It was a recession. I still got a job. And you're at a better school, and you have a better education than I did, so you're going to do fine. So you all do perfect. There's no question in my mind.
Awesome. And we have time for another question. Yes.
Hi, my name is David Hahn. I'm currently a Leonard Leadership Scholar studying economics and international affairs. So you talked about the importance of values, and we're learning about those in our classes as well. When is a time when your values were really challenged, maybe in conflict with a business decision or something in your personal life? How did you deal with that?
It's the great question, and I don't know of a personal, I can't recall an experience right now. I'm sure I had them early on. Let me say this. I don't struggle with it anymore because I know it's a non-starter. Probably early in my career, there are probably a couple instances where I couldn't sort it out, or I didn't know I was struggling with it, but it's this element. And that's really where I developed this idea of, in challenging times, move away from this winners and losers thing. Think of what you're trying to accomplish, but never leave the fundamental values that you have. Once you break those, that's really hard to put back in the bottle. So nothing new there, but hopefully that's reinforcing.
My name is Rick Robb. I'm a proud father of Anna Caroline.
Congratulations. Yeah.
So you talked about new asset classes, investment management. Certainly that could be an opportunity for a lot of college students to look to enter those asset classes. How would you lead your team to identify that talent, and what would you look for that they can be positioning themselves to enter investment management?
We, as Invesco internally, how do we do that?
What advice would you give to these guys to look to enter crypto or other areas of asset management that are booming, new asset classes?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a skeptic on crypto, so I would say don't go there. So, but you're hitting the real point. So again, I'd say you're really fortunate to be here, and with some of the programs, the capital markets program, if I'm going to call it the right up, that is a really great program because you're getting real life experience, and not just real life experience. In that, you're going to look at traditional asset classes, but within the program, there's no doubt in my mind you're looking at private markets. A lot of focus right now on how do you get real estate available to individual investors, how do you get different types of private credit available to individual investors, and those are asset classes that do offer some pretty attractive returns. There's some issues around liquidity that you'll all study, but I think the fundamental point is have an open mind, take advantage of the education you have, and you really should test things that come to market, but I would also be a skeptic generally, which is a good way to be a successful money manager. So for what it's worth.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for those inspiring words and for visiting us today, Mr. Flanagan. On behalf of the Terry Institute, on behalf of the Institute for Leadership Advancement and the Terry Leadership Speaker Series, we would like to present you with a small token of our appreciation as a thank you for being here with us today. Please join me in thanking Mr. Marty Flanagan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everything. Thank you. You did an amazing job. Well done. Well done.
Also, we want to thank you all for attending the Spring 2023 Terry Leadership Speaker Series. Again, thank you. Have a nice day.